Namaste, everybody. So,
Namaste.
namaste. So we are now into the fourth chapter, Vibhuti Pada. It's a short chapter, 34 shlokas, I think, and but it's a very interesting chapter because now all the practices of yoga are over, and here you're getting the fruit of yoga. And in the last chapter itself, we we learned that yoga is not just asana pranayama as what is generally known. It is much deeper and has got much more uh, power. So, as always, I will just recap what we have covered so far in the last 16 talks, and then I'll get on to this chapter. All right. So, yoga is defined as in the second shloka as yogasya chitta vritti nirodha. Consciousness, or the Purusha as yoga calls it, is just a field of pure awareness. It is complete stillness, is complete silence. But we don't experience it as such because worldly matters envelop us and, you know, sends her out into thoughts, emotions, and feelings, which keep modifying this completely still, pure consciousness. So we always experience consciousness as thoughts, feelings, and emotions, right? Yoga is basically the stoppage of all this, and all these thought, feeling, emotions together are known as vrittis or disturbances. It's a disturbance on the field of consciousness, right? And we saw that there are 5 categories of knowledge which leads to the vrittis. The first category is pramana or right knowledge, where if you see a piece of rope and it appears to you as a rope, that's right knowledge. And that creates a vritti. So that knowledge going in creates a vritti. The second is viparyaya, which is wrong knowledge. So you see a rope, but it appears in your mind as a snake. It's wrong knowledge, but it still creates a vritti. Third is vikalpa. You imagine something. That imagination also is creating a vritti in your mind. The fourth is nidra, that is deep sleep. In deep sleep is a state of not being conscious, but actually consciousness is lurking in deep sleep also. And the proof of that is when you wake up, you kind of get a feeling that I have slept well. So the conscious is lurking in deep sleep as well. So that is also considered a source of vritti. And finally, smriti or past knowledge, memory. Uh, 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 Chandrasekhar, I think your some disturbance is coming from your end.
Is it?
If you want to mute yourself,
Okay, I'll do that.
yeah, 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 that's better. Okay. And the method of stopping the vrittis are the 2 engines of yoga: abhyasa, which is continuous, uninterrupted, day after day practice of yoga, and development of vairagya or dispassion, non-attachment, which slowly develops as you progress in the practice of yoga. And once this vrittis reduce with this practice of yoga, when the mind becomes calmer, then the meditative consciousness develops in a yogi. It's called samadhi prajna or samapati. And the yogi now is in a condition to go into dhyana or samadhi, right? And samadhi has 4 stages. So in the first stage, the consciousness, there is absorption in consciousness, but the mind is still active. Thoughts are still going on. So this is called vitarka, right? Then as you progress, the thoughts stop. And then with your consciousness, you can observe without any lens, you observe the object of meditation. So you observe Om or a mantra or whatever it is that you're meditating on, right? Observation. Then observation also, then it goes further. This is called vichara. And observation then gives rise to reflection. That means the mind becomes just such a like a mirror. And if you're meditating on Om, the Om begins to reflect in the mind. So it completely absorbs the mind. It's the reflection of Om covers the entire mind. There's just reflection. There's nothing else. There's no observation, nothing, just reflection. And finally, there is complete absorption in consciousness, where the mind and Om, the difference vanishes. It's complete absorption in consciousness. It's called asmita. So these are 4 stages of samadhi. In all these stages, right now, you're still in a state called samadhi with bij. That means your karmas are still there. So there's still motion going on in your consciousness because your karmas are there. Nirbij is when the karmas have run out. Your prarabdha karma is over, it's gone. So then it becomes seedless samadhi or nirbij samadhi. So this was the first chapter, and it addressed the yogi who has developed samadhi prajna, so a more advanced yogi. And Patanjali talked to that advanced yogi about the stages of samadhi, what to expect, how to progress from lower to higher stages of samadhi. In the second chapter, which is Sadhana Pada, he addresses first the mid-level yogi. So that yogi has practiced yoga, but has still not developed that meditative consciousness. He's still not developed samadhi prajna. So to him or her, he says that there are 3 steps. The first step is tapa or tapas, and which is a continued practice of Ashtanga Yoga. And the purpose is to reduce the hold of desires and the ego. And this brings the mind to peace. It calms the mind down. Once the mind is calmed down, the next step is swadhyaya or self-study. Self-study is nothing but observing your own inner mechanism. You just observe how a thought rises and falls, how a feeling emerges and disappears, how an emotion flares up and goes. So in this observation, you observe your own inner mechanism. You observe how vrittis are working. The mechanism of vritti, you get it just through observation. Right now, when vrittis are happening in ordinary state, we get involved in the vritti. We get involved in the thought, emotion, feeling, and why this, why that. So we are not observing. We are in the drama. But in Swadhyaya, you step out. You're in the audience and you're seeing the drama going on stage, right? And once the observation becomes, your Sakshi Bhav becomes nicely honed, then Ishwar Pranidhana. And Ishwar Pranidhana is nothing but a glimpse of that pure awareness, glimpse of the Purusha, glimpse of that complete stillness. That complete stillness is the Ishwar Tattva in all of us. So that's Ishwar Pranidhana. Next, he talks about human afflictions, and there are 5 afflictions, or which are called kleshas, and this is the cause, the root cause of human suffering. These kleshas are the root cause of human suffering, and kleshas have a connection with karma, and I'll explain how. So the mool klesha is avidya. What is avidya? Avidya is that you don't have a sense of that pure awareness, of that stillness, of the still consciousness. That is the essence in all of us. That is the essence. The stillness is the essence of all of us. But we don't have that awareness. And if we don't have that awareness of that reality, we consider something which is transient, impermanent, passing as the real, which is our mind and body. Our mind and body came into being and it will go away also, but we consider that as real. So that is avidya. Avidya is not knowing what is your essence and considering something which is transitory as your essence, which is mind and body, right? So that is avidya. Avidya leads to asmita. Asmita is the sense I am, ahamkar. So I, mine, that is avidya, and that is it's a natural fallout of looking at yourself as a body. So as a body, you're different from some other body, and if you're different, then there's a sense of I which comes in, right? And also because you identify as yourself as a body and mind, you run after things which give you pleasure, and you run away from things which give you pain. So raga and dvesha are the third and the fourth klesha, right? And finally, since you are identified by the body, you cling to life. If you were identified with the pure consciousness, you will know that you're eternal. So there's no need to cling. I mean, there's no life, death, nothing. But since you are in the body, you cling to life. It's called abhinivesha. So these are 5 kleshas: avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, and abhinivesha. And these kleshas propel you into action all the time. So this fear of dying, likes and dislikes, raga and dvesha, you're always uh, filling you with desires and motivations to act. And when you act, it creates more desires and therefore more action. So then you're in a cycle of karma. So klesha leads to karma, karma leads to action, action kind of reinforces klesha. So klesha, karma are linked. And finally, in that chapter, he talked to the novice yogi and said, here, if you're starting off, then there's Ashtanga Yoga, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Now, the third chapter, very interesting chapter again, he talks about the siddhis or the psychic powers which yogis get. And he talks about how they get it. So he talks about this idea of samyama. Samyama is nothing but the yogi becomes so proficient that he can do dharana, dhyana, and samadhi simultaneously. So simultaneously, he can concentrate, he can, go into effortless being with that object, and he can get absorbed in that object or in consciousness itself. So simultaneously. So basically, samyama is a very high level of conscious power, very high level of concentration. And with that high level of conscious power, if you were to put that high level of conscious power on an object, on a chakra, on a mantra, or on any object in nature, then your consciousness gets absorbed in that object. And so you completely come to know that object. You come to know that object as you know yourself, because your consciousness is in the object. And all the powers of that object, it comes to you. Right? So this is how yogis can get siddhis, right? And then he talks about many siddhis. I mean, by doing samyama on this, you get this siddhi, samyama on that, you get that siddhi. Also, very clear thing that these powers are not to be displayed. These powers are ladders to kaivalya. It comes naturally, these powers, because the yogi can then manipulate nature at will. But if you display these powers, then the fall in the abyss is so steep. It's called yog bhrashta. That means you're finished. I mean, it's you're gone. So never to show off these powers. These powers are just steps to kaivalya, right? So these were the 3 chapters, and now I'll start on the 4th one today, which is Samadhi. Sorry, Kaivalya Pada, which talks about liberation itself. That's a chapter. I have divided it into 3 sections. The first section, I'm going to talk about what is the nature of Kaivalya and how yogis can use. Now now the yogi has reached a very high level of consciousness. How can that yogi use it to run through his karmas faster? Because we saw that the yogi has reached samadhi with beads. That means he's reached samadhi, but the karma is still running. The clock of karma is still going on. So how can he let the river of karma flow faster? Is what I'll cover today. In the next talk, I will cover the metaphysical aspect. So, what is time? What is past, present, future? So it's very interesting. So that the metaphysical aspect is what I'll cover in the next chapter, and the next talk, and the last talk, Kaivalya itself, liberation, which is also very interesting, right? So I'll start with today with the first shloka in this chapter says that siddhis are obtained in 5 ways. The first way is birth. Some people are born with powers. Some people are born with a skill for telepathy or clairvoyance, right? And why is this? Because they are carrying it from the last birth. So the thing is, whatever level you have reached in any birth, that continues into the next birth. All right. So you start from where you left off, right? So it remains accumulated, and the sadhaka then progresses from there. So there are examples like Shankaracharya. He began writing absolutely profound things at the age of 8. Gyaneshwar, Ramana Maharishi, Anandamai, they got enlightened at the age of 14, 15, 16. So they were carrying it from previous birth. So birth is one way of attaining these siddhis or these powers. You already are carrying it from the previous birth. That's one, right? Second is drugs. So Aldous Huxley, long ago, he wrote a book, Dose of Perception, where he talked about drugs inducing, higher levels of consciousness. But we are not talking here about the kind of drugs all of us were dabbled in at some point in time. We're not talking about hashish and ganja and even LSD, not those kind of drugs. But these are very special herbs known only to yogis, found in the Himalayas. Things like, what's mentioned in the book is Anjana, Rosayana, and certain preparations of mercury. But these are very, very much yogis' secrets. Everybody doesn't know it. And so this is another way to induce higher states of consciousness. Third way is mantra, which Tantra follows. So the mantra, the words itself, the syllables itself, the vibration of the mantra, it kind of unfolds something psychic, something spiritual, occult within us. And, it works on the chakras and nadis. And, it works at a very subconscious level as well. So Tantra is totally based on, and one of the pillars of Tantra is mantra. There's also others, yantra and all that, but mantra is very much there. So mantra as a means to attaining powers is the third method. So birth, drugs, mantra, and fourth one is tapa. So like Jainism is their emphasis on tapa is very strong, austerities, very strong. There's a story of the Buddha. For 6 years, he was a Jain monk, and he'd become like skin and bones. There's a statue of him in the Lahore Museum, with completely ribs showing and all that. So severe austerity also can lead people into nirvana. Eckhart Tolle, he tells the story that he was a very down and out. He had no money, he had no home. He's sitting on a park bench, completely down. Completely like a dredge and suddenly he got it. He got enlightened, right? So austerity is the fourth way, and the fifth we have already covered is samadhi. So there's the 5 ways which are listed in Patanjali Yoga Sutra are birth, drugs, mantra, tapas, and samadhi. Right? Now he talks about what is the nature of this transformation. What's the nature of transforming from an ordinary mind to a enlightened mind? So what is that? What is the nature of this transformation? So, a yogi can catapult from a ordinary mind to a super mind, from ordinary mind to a divine mind to an enlightened mind. And all it needs is that the veil of avidya has to be lifted. So in avidya, in a fundamental way, if avidya goes, once avidya goes, then the latent force of the potentiality of that enlightened consciousness just flows through, right? And this is possible because that latent liberation exists at this point in time in all of us. At this point in time in all of us, that super mind, that enlightened mind, that pure field of awareness, that stillness, it exists in all of us as Atman, Purusha, whatever you want to call it, right? Only thing is, avidya is blocking it. And once you remove avidya, then it just gushes out, right? So this is the nature of the transformation. Now, he says, in the beginning, he said, Yogasya Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So it gives the impression that if you do yoga, it will cause kaivalya. Yoga will cause kaivalya. But now he says, yoga does not cause kaivalya. Kaivalya is already there within you. It is just instrumental. All it does, it removes the covering. All it does is removes avidya. So it removes the veil of Maya. That's all sadhana does. Yoga and sadhana does that. Yoga and sadhana does not lead to kaivalya. Kaivalya is in you. Right now, it is in you. Right? So Patanjali likens it to a farmer. So when he's like, sowing his field, he has made a bund of mud in his field, so the water doesn't come in. So once he's finished sowing and he wants to irrigate, what he does is he breaks the bund. Once he breaks the bund, the water just gushes in to all the channels, right? So similarly, once avidya is removed through the practice of sadhana, sadhana just removes avidya. And avidya is a myth. The term avidya itself, it's talking about something which doesn't exist or exists only as an appearance. So once the avidya is removed, the consciousness is transformed and it rushes out. So sadhana is an instrument. It does not create liberation. Liberation exists within us. So this is the nature of transformation. And this, if we had said it in the first chapter, none of us would have understood it. Because we say, do yoga and you'll become, moksha. You'll attain moksha. All right. But here he says, now that we have understood better, he is saying that liberation is existent within you at this moment. All yoga does is remove the covering over that. That's all. And it gushes through. So yoga does not create liberation, right? Now, another very interesting thing, as I said, there are two levels of samadhi. One is with bija and nirbija. With bija is when the karma is still working. So you have attained samadhi, but there's still a lot of motion in consciousness because of the movement of karma. So, but the yogi at that level, at that stage, he can see all his karma. He can see all his karma, all past lives, everything he can see. And he can also see the prarabdha karma. So I think I explained it last time, but just to repeat. So we have accumulated karmas across many lifetimes, but we have come into this life with a certain amount of karma from that bank. All right. So what we have come to this lifetime is what is called prarabdha karma, right? So the yogi has to live that karma. There's nothing. There's the law of karma. If karma is there, you have to experience it. But what the yogi can do is he can experience it faster. So what the yogi can do is that he can fabricate from his asmita tattva, he can fabricate artificial minds. And actually, very advanced yogi can fabricate artificial bodies also. basically it's like a hologram of the yogi, or a clone of the yogi, which you are creating. And then each of these fabricated minds then starts experiencing one karma or the other. So if you're only one mind body, then it'll take longer. But if you can clone yourself into 10, 100, whatever, then each one experiences a karma. And so your karma, the river of karma flows out faster. But those artificial minds or mind bodies are completely under the control of the original mind. So the yogi original mind can create and fold back the artificial mind. And so whatever the artificial, the clone experiences, it accrues to the original mind. So this is another power which yogis have. And as with all powers we saw last time, this power can also be misused if you want. But the purpose of this power is to let the river of karma flow faster. And another proof of this kind of the yogi's ability to create more mind is, normally, we can multitask. Maybe if you're a woman, maybe 5, 6 things you can multitask. If you're a man, maybe 2, 3 things you can. Your mind can handle like 5 or 6 thoughts or different tasks at one point in time. But there are yogis, living yogis, who perform. They can do 100 tasks. And how are they doing it? They're creating this artificial minds, right? And finally, I want to come to how karma works, and I want to talk about the concept of samskaras or vasanas, right? So we all know that virtuous actions give you good karma, and actions involving vice give you bad karma, right? And so ordinary people, we take actions which are desire driven, which are motivated by attachment to the fruit you will get from their action, right? So they are motivated actions. And because they are desire driven, you're attached to the fruit, that karma leaves some kind of impression, and it propels you into more action, because it generates more desires and therefore more action, and then you're caught in this whole cycle of karma, right? But a yogi, his actions are desireless actions. He is not attached to the fruit. He's reached such a level of bliss that there's nothing in the world which matters to him. So he is completely in the state of vairagya, or non-attachment. So he's not attached to the fruit. He is not taking any action on a desire. So he is not generating any karma for himself. So this is called nishkam karma. Nishkam karma is a word mentioned in all our shastras. And so ordinary people, they are in this whole cycle of ongoing karma with its attendant suffering. But a yogi, he does absolutely desireless action, and therefore there's no karma accruing to him, right? Now, this is where samskara comes in. So when we take an action, and the action is over, once the action is over externally, there's still something going on inside you. So what's going on inside you? That you have taken an action, and what's going inside you? Oh, I loved it. I liked it. Or, oh my God, this was terrible. I don't want to do it again, right? So all those things are playing inside you, and all your like, dislike, desires, feelings, emotions, the whole thing around that particular action, it remains in the psyche, in the subconscious, in the unconscious, like an imprint, like a groove. And that is called samskara. It's also called vasana, right? Same meaning. The samskara and vasana have the same meaning, right? And these deep-rooted impressions, they form in what the Shastras call your causal body, right? In your absolute subtlest of the part of the body. And they are the ones that give you your character, your tendencies, your temperament. So you'll find some people who are, always seeking sensory gratification. They always want to eat good things, be in parties, go out. So that's all sensory, gross things is what kind of motivates them. Okay. So, and there are some other people for whom, bonding is more important. Bonding with other people is more important. And there is a third kind of person who is more intellectually oriented or wants solitude. So these are all kind of yours from your samskara, and that's why it has got into our language as iska sanskar acha hai, iska sanskar bura hai. Good sanskar and bad sanskar is coming from here only. So this samskara is what gives you your latent tendencies. It gives you your character, gives you temperament, and it propels you, gives you your desires, it propels you into action. And these samskara, they lie dormant within us. And when the conditions are favorable, they express. And this explains a few things. It explains why we do not suffer or enjoy some karmas in this life. Okay. It's because of the absence of suitable conditions. It also explains why some karmas fructify early and some karmas fructify late. So if it's like if you plant a spinach, you can reap it in 3 months. But if you plant a guava tree, it will fruit in 3 years. Right. So some karmas can fructify early, some karmas can fructify late. Right. It also explains why virtuous people suffer or why evil people get away. This is what explains it, that the conditions were not ripe for those karmas to express themselves, right? But the yogi has reached a different level. So, all of us are operating from a lower mundane mind, unenlightened mind, right? All of us are operating from there. The yogi has that mundane mind, but he also has an enlightened mind. Both are working simultaneously for the yogi. So the prarabdha karma which a yogi has, he has to experience it. That's the law of karma. He can't get away with it just because he's got enlightened. So he is experiencing it from his lower mind, but he's also observing it from his higher mind, right? So the body is suffering, but he is doing it with complete awareness, complete understanding, complete knowledge, and complete power over it. He's not helpless over it. And so this also underscores the point that nobody is free from karma. That's the law of karma. If karma is there, you have to suffer it, you have to enjoy it, you have to experience it, right? Whether you're enlightened or not enlightened. Okay, we know Ramakrishna died of cancer. So you have to experience the karma. That is the law. But the yogi, because he also has that higher consciousness working simultaneously, he can remain unaffected and watch the river of karma flow. Okay. And also, in the same context, when you are transmigrating from one life to another life, there is a continuity. So across your lives, I mean, a yogi in a state can see all his life from the very beginning and into the future as well. And you can see it as one continuous thing. So there's a continuity because your chitta, your memory and the samskaras, they continue from birth to birth. All right. So even if in a birth, in another birth, what changes is, your location. Maybe last birth you were aborigine in Papua New Guinea. I'm just taking it as example. This birth you are in India, right? Totally different culture, different social class, different setting, everything. But there is still a continuity because your memory and your samskaras are continuing, right? And and therefore these differences in location and all birth to birth does not matter. And because of this, the yogi realizes that these samskaras are absolutely beginningless. It is eternal. Just like consciousness, your essence is eternal, so are vasanas. It's eternal. Although it comes to an end. And it comes to an end when the cause disappears. And what's the cause? Kleshas, afflictions. Once you move from avidya to vidya, the kleshas disappear. Your fear of death goes. Your likes and dislike goes. Your sense of I mind goes, and then finally avidya goes, and then you are in enlightened state. So once that happens, the vasanas end. But the vasanas are beginningless. They have no beginning, right? And the substratum of all this is the Purusha. So this is what causes the cycles of birth. And once you remove the factors, klesha, karma, vasanas, you remove it, then you are in. So this is where I'll end today. And in the next session, we'll go into the metaphysics. Any questions, I'll be happy to take. Any discussion? We have had some very nice discussions. You can unmute yourself.
These vasanas and all that you're talking about, Atul.
Uh,
I mean, I think there must be some scientific way of explaining these things. At the end of it, when the body and where the soul is, right? And the body is going to be cremated or buried or whatever. The consciousness has to move along with the vasanas.
So there have been some scientists who have worked on this, working on consciousness, and they call it some kind of a quantum mesh which survives the death of the body. The scientists are calling it. But these are very speculative theories. They're still not like scientifically proven. But this is what they're looking at. They're saying that they discovered that the functioning of the mind, there's quantum functioning going on in the mind, right? And a quantum mesh is formed, which is your memory. And I mean, these scientists, they are not into Atman and all that stuff, but they're saying there's some kind of a continuity from one body to another. And therefore they speculate that it could lead to rebirth. They speculate, but to a scientific explanation is what they call it as something called quantum mesh.
Because quantum also deals with the matter and energy.
Yes.
And there's a propagation of energy, and the energy source actually gets extinguished in a particular birth, let's say. So it's something like how I try to imagine it is something like a battery. Every one of us is a battery, which operates at a certain frequency. And the cations and anions, just like a car battery. And then there comes a time that all these anions, all die away, right? All these things are matter made of again Prithvi, right? The basic matter.
Correct.
And the so-called prana, we're supposed to be one of the 5 years, 5 years we're supposed to leave the body. They are supposed to go up in the skies or whatever to the and all that. Maybe that goes to the quantum mesh what you're talking about.
Correct.
And again, a similar battery is formed, when they again come back to the earth.
Correct.
That's what it is. And carries on from there.
Yeah. So pranic energy very much is part of it, because they say the prana through Vyana or something, right? It leaves.
Yeah.
When it leaves the body.
And the last of the 5 years we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Bana, Udana, Samana, and
Udana, sorry, not Vyana. Udana is the one which kind of.
Udana is the one which goes down.
Oh, sorry. So I'm getting confused.
Prana is the one which goes last. I mean, as per our, this one.
So there's one particular prana which kind of enmeshes your chitta, and
Right.
So because all thoughts and all prana, all because of prana. No? Everything.
Yes.
Senses, everything is all prana. So they continue. Yeah.
Atul, it's very difficult to really explain scientifically this.
Yeah, I know.
This whole business of the soul leaving the body along with the sanskaras, carrying the mind, intellect, the sukshma sharira, and the pranic energy goes, and then there is the Baitarani river and a whole bunch of stuff which Garud Purana has and then it dwells in the what we call as the Pitra Loka.
Yeah.
Then something happens, you may go to
this loka.
फिर उसके बाद you get back into embodiment, and you carry. This is very difficult actually in today's world where science dominates. You talked about quantum and all that. I don't think there is anything those guys are close to in terms of understanding.
No, as I said, they're very speculative. I mean,
they have this hard problem of consciousness. Bhagas don't even know what consciousness is all about. How does it operate? How does a color green suddenly appears in the mind? In the Chitakash, how does it happen? No one has a clue about it.
I understand, but this is what you're saying is
that way, Atul, the Advaitic, where you're talking of the non-dual reality, and they say that that's all there is. Like you mentioned, that the avidya is the only obstruction.
Correct.
The moment avidya goes, the avidya is like a cover, which is an artificial cover. Really, it's like seeing a snake in the rope. The moment the rope is seen for what it is, it means Brahman is seen as the ultimate reality, and the rest is just a superimposition. Then everything, there is no question of any transmigration. There's no question of anything coming and going. It's just one, and it has always remained one. Right? So that's why I feel that somehow the Advaitic, position is, resonates with science, and I think any thinking person gravitates to that. Yeah.
No, there's no doubt about it.
It's a Patanjali, has given his enunciations. I'm not declining, but I'm saying that was an age where there was, no one really investigated it at such. Like today, Chandrasekhar ji has asked a very pertinent question: how do you get it scientifically, man? In today's scientific world, what leaves the body? Does anything really leave? People have, someone was telling me that some experiments were done where the body is kept in near-death body is kept inside a glass cage to see whether anything goes out. Nothing goes out. The guy dies. He just dies. Yeah. So the point is, I would rather go with that initial part of what all you said. No? That makes a lot of sense. That is the root cause of bondage. All the vasanas, everything would get burnt off. There is a saying in Sanskrit that aneka janma samprapte karmen dhana vidahine. Any lifetime. Here again, see, there's a peculiarity of our ancient scriptures. Even the shlokas, they somehow talk about the continuity of life. Bhagavad Gita also talks about the continuity of life. Shri Krishna himself tells Arjuna, in case when Arjuna asks that in case I die, and my sadhana is incomplete, what would happen to me? He says, you will be born again in a nice household where you can continue your sadhana. Yeah. So this is a big conundrum, but I have sort of resolved it in my mind by this Advaitic thought. I don't know how do you, as a person who has gone very deep into this.
See, what happens, I'll tell you what happens, see, I am a student of the different darshanas. Okay. So each darshana has a point of view. Now, the Advaitic truth is undoubtedly the highest truth. There's no denying that. right? But when we start looking at every other darshana from a Advaita Vedanta point of view, I don't think that is, you're doing fairness to what the Jain philosophy says or the Buddhist philosophy says or whatever yoga philosophy says for that matter.
With a logical, I'm not saying through the Advaitic prism. I'm saying through the logical, scientific analysis.
No. So even if you look at it from a logical, scientific analysis, so suppose Tantra says that at a esoteric level, Shiva and Shakti are one; they're not separate. But at an analytical level, they are separate, and both are real. Now, Advaita has a lot of problem with that kind of a thing, that theory, because they're saying that ultimately, if you're saying this, if it's a shadow of, even a shadow of consciousness of Brahman, then you're talking about duality, is what Advaita says. So Advaita is the highest truth. There's no two ways about that. I think the objection, I'm myself, at a philosophical level, I'm Advaitic, right? So having said that, the objection people have to Advaita Vedanta is, so what do you do with it? So if I'm practicing yoga, then I'm seeing myself progressing. If I'm practicing tantra, I can see some change in me. It's taking me somewhere. Even in practicing bhakti of the Ramanuja and the Madhva kind of bhakti, I can see something happening to me. But Advaita, so what do I do? Okay, great philosophy. I agree with that. But what do I do with this what is it? Shravana, Manana, Nidhi, Dhyasana is what? Do I take each shloka of Upanishad and meditate on it for 4 hours? What do I do with it? So it is not so black and white. I mean, each one has a role to play. Tantra has a role to play. Yoga has a role to play.
Atul, Meenakshi here.
Yes.
Meenakshi, I am sorry, I joined absolutely when you said.
I know.
Yeah. That's when I joined, but
But you're also a student of Vedanta and Advaita. You can.
If I might just add over here this point about what should we do with Advaita, what should we do with the manana? I think it is in the phrasing of our question that we are going wrong. So it is not about doing, it is about simply being. Yes. So after that, you drop all you're there, you're realized. So there's nothing to do. So what do you achieve is that knowledge which tells you that there is nothing to achieve. Whereas in Tantra, you're really seeing it in the worldly sense of do this, get there, do this, be there.
Kriya. You're doing Kriya. Yeah.
Yeah. With Advaita, you're saying do this, know this, be there.
Yeah. No, I'm not denying that. I'm not denying. I'm as I said that my instinct is Advaitic, basically.
Yeah.
Atul, what you're saying is you're trying to go beyond even Advaita, is it?
No, I'm not going beyond Advaita. I'm just saying that every darshana has its merits, number one, and number two is every darshana other than Charvak, the goal is moksha. The paths are different. So Ramakrishna very clearly said, Joto pot toto mot.
See, Atul,
everywhere. And Ramakrishna, will you call him Advaitic? Will you call him Tantric? He was a complete Kali Bhakt, So where was it? I mean, Vivekananda, you read his commentary on Patanjali YogaSutra, he ends, his last paragraph is about the mother, about the goddess. So it is mixed. So every route is going. That is the intricacy of Indian philosophy. This whole Sanatan Dharma is so intricate. The same Advaita, Buddha looked at it differently. He said it cannot be expressed. Buddha was an Advaitist. There's no two ways about that.
But then why did they reject the concept of God? I mean, I wonder why. Buddhists don't accept.
They didn't. That's the whole point. The Theravada Buddhists.
No, they believe in Janma and the Vasanas.
No, that's a Theravada. You're talking about Theravada. When you go to Vajrayana Buddhism, it is just like Advaita. So basically, the Buddha was silent because he felt that the question whether there is Atman or no Atman cannot be answered with a yes or a no. So he was asked, does Atman exist? He said, no.
Maybe I may not.
So you're saying Atman does not exist? He said, I didn't say that. So then he says, you're saying that it exists and doesn't exist? I didn't say that. It neither exists nor not exists? I didn't say that.
Yeah.
So that's what he said. So basically, where he was coming from, it cannot be said. So the Theravadas, the traditional, what we call Sri Lankan Buddhism, they interpreted it as what you said: no Atman, no God, no nothing. The Mahayanas, some schools, they said yes, there is consciousness, but consciousness is also momentary. It's part of your skandhas, your layers of existence. The Vajrayana said, yeah.
Let's stay with our Indian tradition, and in that, when we were discussing Advaita and Meenakshi chipped in, that it's only being, right? That beingness, absolutely true. But that's at the stage of realization.
Correct.
The realization of oneness, that Advaita. After that, yes, you're just being. But there is definitely the Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. They are clearly laid down.
Clearly, no doubt.
Yeah. Clearly laid down. Yagyavalkya talks to Maitreyi and clearly tells her that, boss, you have to do these to come to the realization of oneness. And in Mundakopanishad, it also says that Brahmavit Brahmaiva Bhavati. The knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. So you have to become. That becoming of that universal,
so tell me, I hear you.
So there is a Chitta Shuddhi. What I'm trying to get at is that there is a Chitta Shuddhi.
Of course there is. I mean, everything is Chitta Shuddhi.
It's not that you can just get into.
No, I agree. But I'm.
There is a dissolution of ego which has to happen. Yeah?
No, I agree.
It's a very strong ego which grips all of us. I mean,
I understand, but I'm just saying I'm not running down Vedanta.
So it is not that nothing has to be done. Of course, lot has to be done. Yeah. At the initial stages, at the sadhana stage, a lot of work has to be done. You have to keep judging your progress. Are you getting impersonal? Are you getting expanded? Are you getting, what you talked about, the karma yoga, that you are doing work with a selfless attitude without anything for you. So you're burning the sanskaras, the sanskaras which are otherwise there, they all get nullified by this.
I get it. I get your point. I'm not saying no to that. I get your point. But all I'm saying is, okay, let's take yoga. I tell a novice, shuru karo. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, shuru karo. Do this work. The rest will happen. Just follow this process, it will happen. Tantra says, do this kriya. Ye mantra lo, reem, shreem, cream karo apna chakras mein, something will happen. So what I'm saying is much easier than what you and Meenakshi are explaining. And I get it.
वहाँ 8 है, यहाँ 3 है. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana.
But वो ठीक है, मैं समझ रहा हूँ.
What is Nididhyasana? Nididhyasana people miss out, because that's such an important part.
I'm only making one simple point.
And if you have seen the Aparoksha Anubhuti of Adi Shankara, where he discusses 15 steps, 15 things which you need to do in Nididhyasana. And Nididhyasana, so there are
steps. I'm not denying that.
There's a clear process for all. There's a clear.
I'm not
as to where you are, how you are. So
all I'm saying is at a philosophical level, nothing will match. Advaita is the ultimate truth. There's no two ways about that. In my mind, there's no.
And it is scientific, yeah. It is.
Yeah. Absolutely, it is scientific. It's no two ways about that.
Absolutely.
But all I'm saying.
So when are you getting into talking Advaita and not into these stuff? Yeah, ये सब तो बिल्कुल. Patanjali and all is fine. Yeah, there are the.
No. I will not agree with you. Because I'll tell you why. This is a point I made. I noticed this in most Advaitins.
If you are convinced that is the thing for you also, you did confess that you are, in your heart and in your.
So this is the problem I have. Right? This is the problem I had with Advaitins, that they look down upon all the others.
No, look down.
No, absolutely you look down. No, so I'm sorry. If you're looking
that itself is a long process.
No,
Why
you're looking
don't you
down.
get involved in that?
Down.
What is your core belief? Stay with that. No.
What is the point that, Atul? I mean, tantras are really good. Tantric yoga is pretty good. Is it what you're trying to say?
No. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there are many paths.
Okay, one of these is
you choose a path which suits you. That's all. But you cannot say that yoga is superior to tantra or Vedanta is superior. Philosophically, Advaita Vedanta is the superior. There's no two ways about that. But path you choose, whatever.
Atul, I just have a question. Having heard the talk today, Yoga Sutra में rebirth का specifically Patanjali ने बोला है क्या?
हाँ, बिल्कुल बोला है.
अच्छा, because I don't recall which chapter and
no, in this chapter, in all chapters it's there.
He specifically said that you're reborn.
Yeah, so it's karma, you're reborn, and the whole idea is to realize that your essence is Purusha, and Purusha is never entangled with Prakriti, and once you do that, then your rebirth stops. Then you transcend.
Purusha and Prakriti, of course, he's talked extensively, but the
he talked about rebirth.
I don't know. It is an interpretation, I feel.
No. As long as I can pull out the shlokas and send it to you also. But it is as long as your Purusha is entangled with Prakriti, you are in the cycle of karma and rebirth. Klesha, karma, rebirth.
Yeah, no, he's talking about karma, klesha cycle.
And rebirth.
But rebirth, I don't recall a single sutra out of the 198.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I would like to, because it's been many years since I studied it.
No, it is there. Rebirth 100% there. As long as karma and rebirth are linked, no.
No, but he doesn't say it. What my point is,
but then
is there a specific sutra?
You have to interpret it. No?
Interpretation, of course, yeah. Because he specifically talks about Ishvara Pranidhanam. He's mentioned Ishvara Pranidhanam 4 times in the Yoga Sutras.
Correct.
He's specifically talking about these kleshas and sanskaras. I mean, some things are very, very... Most of the things in Patanjali Yoga Sutra are very specific, but I don't specifically recall
let me just say
him saying that you are reborn, that the spirit goes and is born again into another body. I don't really recall any sutra.
So Sutra number 9 in the chapter 4, it says, because memories, and I'm reading the English translation, I can pull out the
4.9.
No, 4.9, yeah. You can just see that. Because memories and impressions retain the same form, the relationship of cause and effect continues even through separated by class of birth, locality, and time. It is straight away referring to rebirth.
Sutra 4.9.
Yeah.
Sanskrit wala hai. Because there are so many interpretations. I don't have my Yoga Sutra book here with me, actually.
It says Jati, Desha, Kala, Vyavahita, na.
Jati, Desha, Kala.
It is because memory and impression are the same in form. There is a sequence, although they may be divided by class of birth, place, and time. So it basically, what it is saying is that in a birth, you might be born in a totally different place from your previous birth, but the sequence continues, is what basically it is about it.
No, he doesn't say about the sequence continuing. Even
he says that. No, he says that they may the sequence. There is a sequence, although they may be divided by class of birth, place, and time.
See, Jati is what?
Jati is class. He talks about Jati as class. So you may have been born in some class in the last birth, some other class in this birth is what he refers to. Location, you may have been born in China last time and in India this time, like that.
I thought jati was never used in earlier years. Varna was the only thing that was used.
No, this is not jati and varna in that sense.
Okay.
It
Just
jati
is
a class or a category.
Category.
Yeah.
I'll study that.
Yeah.
Study that.
Thanks, Atul.
There is no beginning to them, and the desire to live is eternal. And in the next talk, when I'll give when he talks about past, present, future, the continuum of that. So he does talk about it. And the whole purpose is to liberate yourself from this cycle of rebirth, suffering.
Since you brought up about Ramakrishna, what I remember reading about was even Ramakrishna tried this tantra stuff for some time. Then he gave up.
Correct. No, he never gave up. He had a Vedantic Advaita Vedanta guru. I forget the name.
There was a lady with whom
yeah, but he never gave up. He
gave up. I thought there was a time when he stopped that.
No, he went into this nirguna sadhana and all.
Atul, he got Totapuri in his life.
Totapuri, that's the one.
And Totapuri initiated him in the Advaita Vedanta, and he went into it. It took time for him, but he went into it.
He went into it.
So Rahul's question, the moment you talk about prarabdha and vasanas, prarabdha especially, it implies rebirth.
It implies rebirth.
Yeah.
So he may not have used the word rebirth anywhere, but he's implied it.
It implies rebirth, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't ever use the word rebirth. That's for sure.
But there's enough indication. Prarabdha, good point, Vinod made. Prarabdha he uses, which implies rebirth.
Probably the school under which I studied, they didn't elaborate on that rebirth at all during.
But if we use the word like prarabdha, sequence, then it is really talking about this side rebirth. The moment you come over samskara, kleshas, karma, rebirth is implied. And kaivalya, I mean, when you transcend all this, the cycle of rebirth, it is implied that what are you transcending? If there's no rebirth in yoga, then there's no difference between yoga and charvaks.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I will go back and study again a little bit.
One more thing is, Atul, from what I've heard of the people who read the Bhashyams for Bhagavad Gita, Kaivalya is again not exactly the fullest, highest of liberation.
Let's leave it for.
There is oneness with the super consciousness is supposed to be the ultimate one, but they'll liberation of this. Whereas Kaivalya is supposed to be one step below.
I think there are 4 steps. No? The sahajas, something. There are 4 steps. Tantra says there are 4 steps in Kaivalya. You had mentioned it once. I forget what it is.
Samipyam, Swarupyam, and all those things.
All those things.
So Sahyajyam is ultimate. Yeah. Sahyajya Pad is one, where Pad is in a position is the ultimate one. Sab is Samipyam. The Sab is simple things like rituals. But this is where you find some kind of identity with that ultimate.
I'll cover it in the 3rd talk, but basically it says ki, like there could be things beyond Kaivalya, but we don't know.
Okay.
Is what he leaves. The last shloka leaves it at that.
Because liberation being equated with the Kaivalya is what I was wondering whether it's ultimate, whereas moksha is considered to be the ultimate. Okay.
Okay. All right, great. Then shall we?
Thank you, Atul.
End the session. Yep. So
thank you, Atul. Thank you very much.
two more talks. We'll end the Patanjali YogaSutra.
Sure.
All right. Chalo. See you.
Bye. Good night. Good night. Good night.
Bye. Thank